Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. I know we have a lot of people pouring in, and we have a lot to talk about. We've covered it extensively on the channel over the past several days, but it has just been a week that has not really been all that great for numerous reasons, but the number one reason that stemmed all of the other reasons is the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This is a guy who was 31 years old, a father, a husband to two young children, a thought leader that was beloved by millions at home and across the globe as well. And I don't think we're going to be able to say everything that needs to be said in this live stream because there is just so much to cover. But we will be getting to everything. We will be putting on the face cam, but things will never be the same again. Things will not be the same. As for the future of the country, this was truly a turning point. Whether you want to say the pun is intended or not is irrelevant, because it is. This is just the most consequential assassination of a political figure in the past 60 years or so, give or take a few years. You'd have to go back to the 60s to find one that you could say was more consequential, was more important in politics than whatever took place this week. It was horrific. How it unfolded was horrific, but also how people reacted to it, I think, made things far worse than they really needed to be, coming from the left, coming from the media. So we will put on the face cam in a second, but I just, it's just a little bit of a tribute stream, but also we have to cover what's just been going on, lately with the fallout, because we did a video the day of, we did a video a couple days after, and we are going to be doing this stream that I've been meaning to get around to doing. I know I usually stream on Sunday, so we have waited until Sunday to start streaming. But it's like it's hard to process. It's really hard to process the fact that this is a guy who is very impactful in politics. Without him, young voters would not have been as conservative. He essentially played a major role in saving an entire generation based on what he was able to do, and he did it peacefully. He's the last person. Nobody deserves it, but he's the last person that would deserve a fate like this because of how he would conduct himself, and you saw it in every single step of the way throughout his entire life, and the way that he carried himself. He was always humble. He was always respectful. He would always, he would push the envelope, but he would do so in a very articulate, eloquent manner. And he's definitely a very great, heroic American for what he's done throughout his entire life. And it's really a big shame that it was cut short. I didn't even know. I know he was young. I didn't know he was 31 years old. I thought he was 35. Not like it would make much of a difference, but 31, that is not an age that anybody should ever want to die at for just obvious reasons. I mean, he had his life taken away, and he had his entire life in front of him. He had a family that loved him. He had two young children that loved him. And now that he's just an entire country, not the entire country, obviously, but a good segment of the country, they loved him. Even the people that disagreed, that got to know the guy, they liked him because he's just a likable guy. He's just a nice guy, and he's done great things, and he's effective. And he would go to these campuses, and he would talk to people, and he would be for debate. He would not be for violence. And this was a debate, or a tour that he would do, that was labeled Prove Me Wrong. Prove Me Wrong was the name of his tour. And to prove him wrong, it's like, this is what happens. Because they can't prove you wrong, you take a bullet to the neck and you just horrifically bleed out and die. We're not going to obviously show the video because it's disgusting, and I don't think anybody wants to see that. But I mean, as somebody who is just shaken up about this myself, I'm an influencer. I'm not nearly on that level, but it's like anybody who speaks their opinion on anything, no matter what you do in social media, in just real life in general, if your life is going to be put at risk by crazy people, that's not a civil society that we live in. And for millions of demonic leftists on the other side to celebrate that, and to celebrate the murder, in your murder, horrific murder, and do it so mockingly and lie and blatantly lie and drag your name through the mud on your, before you're even put in the ground, it's disgusting. And that's the country that we live in. This is a political leader that you cannot understate his, you just could not really understate his contributions. Donald Trump, obviously, everybody would say is the undisputed number one conservative or right-wing figure in the United States. But behind him, maybe you could make a case for somebody like a Vance, or I guess maybe Elon before, he decided to go just bonkers again for the 10th time. But Charlie Kirk was that guy. I mean, what he was able to do with Turning Point Action and get all these young people out to vote and just build an apparatus that turned out voters because he cared a lot about winning. He cared a lot about advancing his cause and helping out Donald Trump and helping him win this election and helping save not only his country, but also the younger generation from people like the perpetrator. And it's absolutely sad that this is a thing in this country. I never thought it still is something that doesn't feel real. You still feel like you're in shock about it, and it's just absolutely devastating. I never met the guy. I know people that have met the guy, but I never met him personally, and it still feels like I lost a close family member. And I was a fan of his. I don't think he's had a bad take in a very, very, very long time. He's been somebody who's been on the ball just nonstop for the past 5 years and has played a major, major role in helping us take back our not only government but institutions and help make sure that there's going to be a voice out there to fight a lot of the stuff in the culture in this generation. He was a very big figure. Besides Donald Trump, he was that number 2 in command. I think that's relatively undisputed. And now he is somebody that has senselessly just been assassinated in cold blood by a demonic lunatic who we have information on. So what we need to do is make sure that this thing doesn't happen again in American politics. I don't know how that's, is that feasible? It's going to be difficult, in my opinion, and I'm not happy about that fact. But this thing should not be happening. People are being gunned down for their beliefs, and it's, again, this usually goes one way. The other side has this tendency to dehumanize their opposition, and when you do that and you tell people that everybody who is to the right of Mitt Romney in 2012 on a few issues is some sort of Nazi or Hitler, and then you say that it is okay to commit violence against people like neo-Nazis or whatever, and then they do stuff like this, because that basically means anybody that they disagree with is some sort of Nazi, even though they're a sensible person. Hitler didn't give people a microphone. He would just kill them. And these people are the ones killing us. So again, there's a lot of irony that goes into this sort of thing, but you have deranged leftists, and left-wing violence is on the rise. And we're going to talk about it because we've heard so many people talk about right-wing violence on the far right or whatever. And the far-left violence, the statistics are actually surprising when you cut through the noise and the disingenuous nature of how they categorize these studies. So there's a lot of, I know we have people that are sending in super chats. We'll get to those. We'll get to those at some point during the stream. But we do have a lot to get to. And the motive, we'll talk about the perpetrator a little bit, because you have this narrative. They said, first of all, you had people on the left, and maybe we should go in chronological order, because you had people on the left essentially going out there and celebrating this type of stuff. And it's not You could say, who are these accounts, these fringe characters? But they garner hundreds of thousands of likes, and they don't get any pushback. And I hope that these tweets are botted to an extent. I hope it's a bunch of people sitting there spam liking in some third world country, because I don't think that I want to live with this many people on the opposition. But we have seen that want us to basically would want you dead, would celebrate your death, would make light of your death because you have different opinions than they do, than the regime does. And when it comes down to the way the left operates, you've seen polling data that shows that like 40% of self-described liberals would celebrate or would say that it is somewhat justified if there was an assassination of somebody like a Donald Trump or an Elon Musk. And the left does nothing to push back on this. You've had a lot of boilerplate statements from people like Obama and Kamala Harris, and then 2 hours later they're tweeting about how horrific deportations are. These are not serious people. These are people that act in a way that is complicit and subversively complicit, because they'll say, oh, this is horrible. We don't know the motive yet. It's obvious what the motive is. There was a chance maybe it's a radical Islamist. Maybe it was a far-right type that thought Kirk was not far-right enough, but it's evident that given all the data now, that's not the case. But it hasn't stopped the left from running with that narrative and just blatantly lying about like the dumbest things I've ever seen. As somebody who understands how some of these groups might operate, seeing the left try to twist themselves into a pretzel and say the shooter is some far-right lunatic is just insane. These are far-left lunatics that are out there, and there's a lot of people that are acting like this, and many of them, and we've seen this. This was a statement that was put out today because the Republican Party in California invited the Democrats to a vigil that would actually be unity. So they always say, turn down the temperature. So we try to do that, which again, it's a big insult. It's just a spit in the face when they say turn down the temperature. Like, you did this and you want us to turn it down? You turn it down. You tell these people to turn it down. Who the hell do you think you are telling us to turn down the temperature? Go shove the full thermometer up your ass. That's what you need to do, because you have no idea what the hell you're talking about when you say that this is the fault of the rhetoric on the right. The right, you are shooting at people on the right. We've had this time and time again with the 2 assassinations on Donald Trump's life that took place last year. You had a multiple over the past few years shootings in Christian schools that were committed by transgender individuals that were influenced by this radical transgender ideology. And you want to sit here and say that we need to be the ones turning down the temperature? Are you kidding me? First of all, let me be clear. I disavow any sort of violence or retaliation, because that would be disgusting. Do not do anything stupid that is ridiculous, that's a stain on the right, that's a stain on Charlie's legacy. And those people, if anybody does that, those people need to be hung right next to this guy that did this, because that's not, that is not who we are. We're going to use our brains. We're going to do it peacefully, and we will still crush these people that are acting like this. We will. This is what it comes down to. We cannot let these people go out there and dominate the narrative about this thing and blame the victims. It's horrific that that's even like a possibility. So we have to be smart. We have to be peaceful, but that doesn't mean that action should not come out of that. And that means that we need to go out there and make sure that we get accountability for people that are celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination or making light of it or trying to run his name through the mud wherever is possible, because you cannot have a civil society with people that behave like this and have zero regard for human life and the lives of half, if not more, of their countrymen. You cannot have a society like that ever. And that is not something that we need to have happening. And the only way to stop this is accountability. It is the FAFO culture. And yes, it means you've seen this. 961 people have been fired from their jobs while the left is whining about that and complaining about cancel culture hypocrisy to what Chai say, I don't give a shit what you want to call it. It's necessary because you cannot live in a society where people are getting away with this. There's a difference. The left canceled people because they weren't posting a black square on Instagram. They were trying to get people fired from their jobs. They got rid of American history. They were canceling our history. They were canceling, they were claiming they were for BLM and then canceling Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima. That's the left's cancel culture. They want to tear down statues, which nobody had a problem with until 5 minutes ago, and then they keep chipping away until there's nothing left. That's cancel culture from the left. From the right, it's common sense. There's certain things you shouldn't be able to get away with. You can say it's free speech. You could say it's the First Amendment, but these people need to pay in some way, shape, or form legally and peacefully. And at that point, hopefully, you're going to see a little bit of change. Hopefully, you're going to start to see people understand that there's consequences for their actions. And we need to bring back mental asylums. That's a whole nother conversation, because the way some of these people are acting, if you did this back in the day, you would probably find yourself in one of those places, because that is not the way a human being acts. I don't even think most animals act that way. I think it's just absolutely disgusting the way the left has handled this, especially the rank and file, the inmates that are running the prison with their discourse. You have countless TikToks. You have instances where people are at vigils and being attacked for mourning Charlie Kirk, who they view to be a hero, who was a great man who just wanted to change your mind. These people must have accountability. You could call it whatever you want to call it, but this is not the same thing as telling a joke that you found offensive 10 years ago. If this was about something that was not, let's say this was about something that wasn't a recent event, a recent assassination attempt on somebody who did not deserve something like this, and nobody deserves something like this if we're going to be honest. You're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges. That's the main takeaway. I think Matt Walsh had a good tweet here when he said there's a big difference between the left canceling people and the right canceling people, because the left will cancel people for saying things that are true. If you mention that George Floyd in 2020, for example, died of a fentanyl overdose when he did have 4 times the amount of fentanyl in his system, you would be just outcast from society. They would call you an extremist. You would probably have lost your job if they tried to call the employer or whatever. An employer shouldn't bow down to stuff like that. But again, if the right will cancel you for being abhorrent and sick, it's a pretty important distinction, which is true. The replies are full of leftists engaging in brain rot takes. And I don't think we need to look at them because we don't need to lose more brain cells. But back to the main point about this is that these people declined to turn down the temperature. They declined it because they said he has a fascist ideology. They can't even define it. They can't define it. They pretend not to listen. They pretend not to hear what you have to say. That's their entire ideology. We've seen so many examples of people taking Charlie Kirk quotes out of context to run his name through the mud the second after this happens. This thing has happened before. We know Rush Limbaugh passed away in 2021, and you had people on the left that were not celebrating it to the extent that they were, but you had people saying, oh, he was not really a good man or whatever. It didn't hit the same. Rush Limbaugh passed away. He died. We knew he was going to pass away soon, from 2020 because he had cancer, and Trump gave him the Medal of Freedom at that one State of the Union in a pretty heartwarming moment. But he wasn't assassinated for what he believed. And it definitely hits differently given the circumstances, because people act like every single death is equal. This guy was 31. He, in front of his family, in front of a lot of people who loved him and looked up to him, just took a bullet to the neck in a horrific, gruesome assassination attempt that somebody shot at him 200 yards away for exactly what he believed. And now we know that's what it was. It was always it was always going to be for what it was. He's a political figure. People will say, don't politicize. It's like, what exactly, how do you not politicize something like this? He was taken out because of his political beliefs, and the left wants us to turn down the temperature while you're still just going on. You know what the bullet casing said in the gun that took out Charlie Kirk? It said, "Catch this, fascist." These are the same rhetoric that these people are spreading while telling you to turn down the temperature when they're not turning down the temperature. So whether they want to respectfully decline, you could find a way to get your point across without going down to this level. You can, because this is just, it's ridiculous what is going on. It's absolutely insane. And you look at this tweet right here, and this is how they operate. They'll take something you say that they can sensationalize out of context because they don't have a vision that is positive for the country. They want to make you look bad and make people mad at you, so people either like them or things like this happen. And when you lose power, and when these people are popular and they like you, they like them more than they like you, this sort of thing tends to lead to that sort of thing. And this is the left's playbook. This tweet here saying, just minutes after Charlie Kirk passed away, says that Charlie Kirk called the Civil Rights Act of 1964 a huge mistake. Now, here's the deal. This is what the left does. They will take things you say out of context, and then they will use them to mobilize their mentally ill foot soldiers. That's how they operate. In many cases, it's at the polling places or whatever, but it's also with a growing segment of the left turning a more violent turn. It is. And the amount of far left violence, aside from riots in recent years, is much, much higher, and it cannot be ignored, this trend line. And this was the entire Harris campaign in 24, the entire campaign. And this rhetoric was responsible for Charlie Kirk and his assassination attempt. Because if you want to be honest here, what Charlie Kirk actually said was that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 kind of created laid down the groundwork for DEI. Charlie Kirk is not pro-segregation, but there are many people at the time, respectable people, Ronald Reagan included, I believe, that believed that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a constitutional overreach. And that's exactly, in many cases, what it was. There were parts of it that the black community was not fully on board with either. Every major bill is going to have points of contention, every single one. So they just pretend. Their entire ideology is pretending not to understand the argument and then trying to use that to demonize their opposition. And past a certain point, dehumanize their opposition, so much so to the point where you could just have all of these people without consequences dancing on the grave. During the speech that Erica Kirk gave, which was a beautiful speech a few nights ago, you had comment sections on YouTube. They were just flooded with people that were mocking and saying horrible things about what happened. And these are it's a lot of it's online stuff. It is true. A lot of this is terminally online, but it's a growing segment of the left that they haven't put the lid on. And the discourse online, and that kind of spills over to the mainstream media. That's really what it's come down to. The Nation put out an article saying Charlie Kirk was a horrible, and they list all their buzzwords and tell people not to mourn his death or something. And it's if you have nothing nice to say, because I'm not asking people to love Charlie Kirk if they don't love what he says on the left. They don't have to do that. You have disagreements, but if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. Look at Donald Trump, for example. The left will say, and even some of the right will say that Trump is not known for being very reconciliatory or whatnot. But if you look at how he treated the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the emotion, he was genuinely, people said that it was scripted because of just how real it was. Obviously, the music in the background played a role, but how he dealt with, Jimmy Carter, for example, or so many other people that were not really on his side that passed away. It's like he dealt with this stuff well. When it comes down to the left, they tend to engage in this sort of behavior. The politicians, they may put out, like I said, the boilerplate statements, but they will never go out of their way to condemn this sort of stuff explicitly And yeah, you have people like maybe like a Bill Maher or a Cenk Uygur, even though he's contributed to the climate in the past. I'm not giving him a get out of jail free card there, but it's like there is not widespread condemnation. It's always, what about you? What about the right? What about this thing that happened? There's never been an event that's happened like this. There have been horrific shootings for sure, but there's a reason why if a presidential assassination attempt is going to get widespread coverage and something that happens behind a 7-Eleven at 5 a.m. is not. And life matters in general, but the impact that some people have and the reasons for why certain things happen, again, it's all bad, but there's a reason why this is a big deal. And trying to brush it off like it's nothing, this is not going away. This isn't like even Butler. Because with Butler, Trump survived, it was a miracle. And we could just like move on to an extent, which I still think it's horrific. We don't know anything about the killer. We don't know anything about this guy. We know a little bit more about the second guy, but again, he wasn't nearly as close to Donald Trump. But this is a pattern that is happening. And when you celebrate a Luigi Mangione, this is the type of stuff that happens. This guy thought he would be the Luigi Mangione. So you can't celebrate murder. I know the healthcare system may be broken, but as a CEO that does not control single-handedly the healthcare system, you should not celebrate the murder of such a person. This guy's got a family. This guy is trying, if you look at his record, is trying to make it better. But even if he wasn't trying to make it better and you have a difference of opinion, it doesn't justify it. There's no justification for it. Absolutely not. And the same thing goes when it comes down to this. So left-wing violence is out of control. I do want to make sure that we cover this because this is another thing. The perpetrator was a left-winger. He had a transgender roommate who sources say was his boyfriend or whatever. And there were people that were interviewed on the street that said that they were giving public displays of affection to each other, which would kind of confirm that they were a couple. The governor of Utah has confirmed this, and we've had plenty of other evidence that he was, his family was Republican. The left is running with that and saying that it matters, but it doesn't matter if the family was Republican because you have all kinds of liberals with Republican families. RFK Jr. is in a Republican administration. He's basically a conservative now, even if he's not really conservative, but his family doesn't like him, doesn't agree with him politically. It doesn't matter what family you're really in. A lot of leftist lunatics have families that happen to be conservative. But if you look what he wrote on the bullets on the shell casings, you had references to Bella Ciao, which is an Antifa anthem from fascist Italy for the Antifa. You had words about notices bulges, uwu, which is like a furry or a transgender culture meme. And it makes sense. Noticing bulges, wouldn't that mean that you're into transgenders? The left was like cheering basically that it was a straight white male and said it was a Republican that did this. Why would a Republican do it? It makes no sense. And then they said it was a groiper, which I'm not a fan of groipers by any means, but like it obviously was not for anybody who knows what a groiper is. This guy said Charlie Kirk was spreading hate. If you're on the far right, that's not rhetoric that you would use. It would, if anything, be the opposite. So, and like the words they were saying, like, oh, the song is a popular like song on the far right because they found one playlist that had it on there that had 5 followers. And like these people are unhinged. Like the mental gymnastics they use to get to that point, it's insane. But the trans, he was clearly radicalized by trans ideology to an extent. People said he was a weird, quote unquote, Reddit kid. That all checks out. I mean, he may not have been transgender himself. Who knows if he would have became that? But it's ironic because Kirk was answering a question about transgender individuals committing crimes like this, or transgender ideology giving rise to mass shootings and things like this. And this is exact. I mean, he was proven. They say "Prove Me Wrong" was the title of the debate or the title of the forum, and he was in the worst way possible by this demonic actor proven right in a way. And it's absolutely disgusting that's the way it is, because I don't want that to be the way that it is. There's a target on a lot of people's backs right now, because the more they celebrate this and the more that they show lack of humanity and lionize these people that do this type of stuff, it's going to lead to more violence. It will. And I'm sorry about the loud noise from outside. I cannot control that. But it is ridiculous, and the way that these people operate and the way they've controlled the political climate since Trump came on the scene. But it was happening before. It was happening before a little bit. 2014, I think, was a year where it really went off the rails. And 2016, 2017 since then, and even in the Biden era, the way these people have acted, and they've lost control of the culture. The younger Zoomers are not buying this nonsense. And Charlie Kirk might be one of the reasons why. He's contributed a lot positively, and it's a shame. This is a void that is not going to, these are tough shoes to fill. And I think Charlie would want us to work together to fill them and fulfill his mission. And I think that at the end of the day, you could say that it would have made him and his message stronger. And like it's not something that is going to happen overnight, but we got to, as a movement, come together and just realize that this type of stuff can't keep happening, and not get walked over by these demons and let them guilt trip you with psychological warfare, because that's what it is. Some people used on Twitter the word war, and then left-wingers said that it was like a call to retaliation. I don't necessarily believe that it was. I think that we are in a political war, a spiritual war, and a psychological war that these people are kind of employing on us. And it's not just the violence aspect of it, it's everything else that comes with it. And we can't let these people win, but we're going to be peaceful. And like I said, we must be peaceful. This is not a call to, we condemn it, obviously. This is horrible. Shouldn't happen to anybody. And the only way we're going to change is by making sure that these are the people that we don't go to their level. Because people will say, well, the right has had this like tendency to say that we're like better than them or whatever, and stand on principles. There's certain lines that we don't need to cross. We don't need to go to their level when it comes to things like this to beat these people at all, because we still have enough decent people out there that are fed up with this stuff too. And that's important that we note that, and it's important that we tell people to stay peaceful, because it's exactly what Charlie would have wanted. Charlie was a very peaceful guy. He's a very humble guy, just an overall good guy. The last person who would ever deserve something like this, even though nobody deserves something like this. It's a shame. It really is. And it does hurt, and I don't know, like, this is an event that shakes somebody, I feel like a presidential assassination, if they were, in tune to politics. If they're not necessarily as political, it might not have the same impact, but I'll tell you, a lot more people are paying attention now than were paying attention before, because this is this whole, we can't let these people win. We got to be stronger. We got to beat these people at the ballot box. That's the way Charlie would want it. I got hate for saying that from stupid people on the fringes of the right that want to be accelerationist morons, because I said that, we must honor, it would be a disgrace to Charlie if we sat out of the political arena and felt black-pilled and didn't do anything and didn't vote. And that doesn't mean, shill for rhinos or whatever. What James Lankford said today was horrific. He's doing the both sides thing. That's the worst thing you could do. These people don't understand that the base wants accountability, peaceful accountability, but it has to exist. And they used and weaponized the legal system and the bureaucracy against Donald Trump for very inconsequential things, and did everything they could do with the laws on the books. Well, it's about time that the script flips a little bit. And we're going to get to Super Chats, but I want to make sure we cover everything we want to cover. But Donald Trump went and he said, I believe if we could pull it up, I don't know if we have it offhand, but I think, it's right here. Trump is saying a lot of people are under investigation already. And that's huge. And it is confirmed. They are purging the Department of War. We haven't really talked about that, and I guess we don't really have to, but it has returned to tradition. I like the new name. Of anybody who celebrated Kirk's murder, revving up RICO cases against Soros, indicating he's not the only one. So he's not the only one. Beginning investigations into these Discord servers, because this is where these people plan things, and going after the DSAs at the state level, hopefully the John Brown gun clubs as well, because that's the thing. The left is not really anti-gun as much as people. There are segments of the far left that are very pro-gun, and they're the type of people that do this stuff. And by the way, like I say, it's not the gun, because this is the last gun that would be banned. This is a gun that is legal in every other Western country that doesn't have mass shootings or public shootings in high numbers at all. This is like a standard hunting rifle. If you ban this gun, you're getting rid of the Second Amendment altogether. And on top of it, you would be having 500 million guns in circulation. You're never going to get rid of all those guns. They're not going to go away. I mean, people could make and manufacture their own to get a gun of that caliber. Like, this is something the left does not understand, and they still want to blame guns for things like that. We have a mental health problem. Reddit and all these other places that radicalize these lunatics, these are people that tend to, really be just on all of these psychiatric drugs. And a lot of these people are in transgender ideology. They believe these things and associated with, he clearly obviously did. He said Charlie Kirk was hateful. He opposed Donald Trump. That one Halloween costume from 2017 was most likely anti-Trump, not pro-Trump. The left tried to say he dressed up as Trump. That was not dressing up as Trump at all. If anything, it was like dressing up to mock Trump, but he wasn't dressed up as Trump either. So I don't even know what even that costume was, but it involved Trump, but it was not pro-Trump. And it's absurd. But there are plenty of people that we need to be going after with the Department of Justice. There are plenty of people that need to lose their jobs that should never be employed again. And you can call it cancel culture, you can call it whatever you want, but that's the only way we're going to solve this problem, because people are celebrating murder. They're getting away with doing so. And we've seen people donate to GoFundMes of murderers, raise them millions of dollars. Like, these are people that are just absolutely just disgusting and broken and like mentally ill. These people don't have a normal life. They're not, eating right. They're not cutting down their screen time. Many of them are addicted to pornography and very strange forms of it, and that's why a lot of people become transgender in the first place, or become attracted to transgenders in the first place, or they happen to get on these pharmaceutical drugs, and they mess up people's psychology, and Big Pharma is complicit. I mean, they don't have these drugs in these other countries. That's the main thing. It correlates even more than guns do to the mass shootings. Is all these pharmaceuticals. So there's plenty of reasons why these things happen, and it's not just what's happening to Charlie Kirk. This is a big event. I'm not trying to take away from that, but we see other recent developments, like what happened in Colorado, what happened in Minnesota, what happened in even on the train in North Carolina. That was a big deal, and now they're letting him out of prison to go to like a psychiatric hospital or something that's going to be like a cupcake facility. That's just disgusting. The way these people are operating, they really just don't care about their community or their country. And Charlie did, and it's really just a shame what happened. It really did. This is something that they created a lot more Charlie Kirks, and people probably a little bit less moderate than Charlie Kirk too. This is what happens when you get rid of the social contract in the civil society, and the right respects it. We respect it. They're not the ones respecting it though, and that's the problem. And they will be held accountable via whatever avenue it may be that's legal, whether it is the so-called cancel culture. It's true. I don't want somebody. What do you want? What do you want to have a teacher that celebrates murder teaching your kids? You care more about your principle to oppose cancel culture than that? Let's be honest here. All right, there's a difference. There's a big difference between, saying something that's a political opinion that's controversial, which the left thinks you should be killed for, or celebrating somebody being killed for something, which the left thinks you should be able to carry on as normal about. That's the disgust that I have. And so many prominent people on the left have tried to blame Republicans for this and say the killer was a Republican or a right-winger, which makes no sense. Makes no effing sense at all. Like, they really will do anything to beat you into submission. We have to do something, and we'll use our brains and we'll be peaceful, but there will be accountability. And we'll get to the super chats, because it's been a while. But it is shocking. Everyone's in shock, and they should be in shock, because that could be anybody. It really could be anybody. Cameron Campbell leads us off for 5, saying he's a survivor on the attack on Charlie. Was probably 15 to 20 feet away. Maybe shaken, but I'm still not afraid. Well, that's really something. I know a couple people that were in attendance as well, and were shaken up about it, because it's just, to have that happen, somebody, especially somebody that you like, that you came to see, somebody that in many cases you may look up to, just gets killed by a lunatic for speaking his mind. Horrific. Absolutely horrific. This is the most horrific thing that's happened in American politics since 9/11, in my opinion, especially for what it's done to the discourse and the way things will be moving forward. It is truly a turning point. And I wasn't there at 9/11. Obviously, 9/11 had more deaths. I'm not comparing the two 1-to-1. But as shaken up as one can be about people that you've never met, or a person you've never met that's been just shot dead in cold blood or senselessly murdered in one way or another, I can't imagine the feeling was too different. I can't imagine it was too different. I can't. So every generation has their thing. JFK was one man too. And even among people who voted happily and proudly for Nixon in 1960 and believed that election was rigged against Nixon, they were still in shock, and the country came together, and there may have been very few radicals that were celebrating, that were universally condemned by both sides and rebuked. But this is the entire discourse is gone. Blaming right-wingers. It's funny because if you look at the shooter of Reagan, he was a far-righter in the 1970s. Even then, they didn't try, the moment it happened, to blame people on the far right. So even if this guy was like a right-winger at one point, it doesn't matter. It's violence that's left-wing, but he obviously wasn't, and they still want to blame you. They're honestly blaming you for it, too. That's when they say that he's right-wing, he's a MAGA or whatever, they'll lie. They'll say he's a Republican. The NPC, it's like the tweets, they're paying these people to do it, too. Somebody is. It's disgusting. But they're really blaming you. They're putting it on everybody. And Roku Fan for 2 says Elon is letting his app plunge into chaos. I agree. Elon has really dropped the ball here. Oh, he's like busy or something. I don't care. This is important. And if you're letting this stuff spread like wildfire, things that you've banned people like manually for saying way less, for criticizing you about the H-1B visa program or whatever, this is time for him to put his foot down. He needed to act, and he didn't, and he dropped the ball. So that's an L that he's going to take and hold. Solid Amen says, Charlie never heard any. Absolutely not. He was always gracious. Sometimes I know sometimes I could be a dick to people that disagree, like a lot of people can. Charlie was not like that. He was always somebody who tried to reason with people, see the best in people who were just shouting at him, yelling at him, calling him names, probably the same people that are celebrating this. Like, he was always just the type of guy that wanted to change your mind. And if he wasn't able to, he wasn't able to, but he would agree to disagree. And it's just a shame. And the people on the left that slander him and run his name through the ground, shame on them too, but they never met the guy. They never reasoned with the guy, because even the people on the left, the few people on the left that have, they're not acting like this, and they are willingly speaking out and condemning it nonstop. As much as I don't like Cenk Uygur, at least he did say the right thing. I know that he's contributed to the climate, but again, the main point is have the basic human decency to say this is wrong. And maybe he is working to change his rhetoric a little bit. I don't know. He has kind of seemingly gotten more sane over the years, despite being on the left, and we won't agree on certain things. We won't agree on cultural issues or healthcare, but I think that At least, like, that's the baseline of a moderate Democrat now, is we can agree that celebrating a person's death without, or just like brushing it off with a whataboutism or whatever is wrong. It's wrong. It's blatantly wrong. And that's the bar. Like, this is how far we've fallen, that this is the bar. I mean, you have people celebrating several murderers and murderers. You can't have a civil society with people that do this. And 2 weeks ago, they were cheering the fact, because he went on like a vacation to golf, that Donald Trump might have been dead. They were celebrating, and Tim Walz himself alluded to it in a way. Maybe you could interpret it for just like the health reasons, but you had people cheering in the crowd. These are not people that really you can reason with. This is not, an opposition that is gracious or fair. This is an opposition that literally wants you dead. And, people say it over the years and it gets brushed off, and they say that's like a radical talking point that people on the other side, no, a very large segment of them do. A very large segment. You have tweets with hundreds of thousands of likes. You have, last night there was like an entertainer of some kind that celebrated it on stage. I've never heard of him, but like, these are people that you cannot share a civil society with if they act like this, and there needs to be a way where people don't act like this. And there are a lot of solutions, but they do need to be discussed in regards to a lot of different things. And this is one of them. But I mean, this is what I guess we didn't push back enough on. And that's not, I'm not saying it's our fault, but like there are things that we can do as a country to effectively mitigate things like this in the future. Maybe push back on things like Luigi Mangione. Stop, celebrating people like that because they've violated the social contract. And you can't, it's funny. The same people that will say that the healthcare system is broken, their idea of healthcare for people that disagree with them on healthcare is just a bullet. You can't have that. And this is little different and more horrific because this was public. This was of a major political figure, the second most prominent right-winger in the country behind Donald Trump, one can say. And he's just gone. And he just wanted to make his country a better place. That's all he really wanted. And I think that's what a lot of us want too. And the fact that that's what put a target on his back, and that's what puts a target on all of our backs moving forward is horrific. And it's horrifying. So American Nerd 1776 says, I don't know what to do. A part of me wants to get involved, but I'm afraid if I end up like Charlie, if I do such a thing, well, they can't. If it's all of us, it's all of us. They're not going to be able to. At the end of the day, we have to be leaders and stand up. And sometimes people that do get involved, bad things will happen to them. And that's the sad reality of our world. And I don't like that that's the way it is, but I think that this confirms it. And Donald Trump being shot at confirms it, and plenty of other instances, ICE officials and agents being beaten up on the streets and spat on and firebombed by leftist lunatics. I mean, we need to be involved. We won't let them beat us into submission. That's not going to be the answer. Donald Trump was shot at, and he said, fight, fight, fight. Now, of course, some people will say that that is like a call to like bad action, but I don't think that's what it means. You have to fight for what you believe in. It's just a common saying. So don't twist that negatively. But and that's the shirt we're wearing now, technically, and that's true. He was faced with, life or death situation, and he put his fist in the air, and thankfully they only got his ear. They didn't get his head, because could you imagine the reaction? That would have been, that's horrifying. And this is just as horrifying in many ways. Real Texan Politics says, Charlie was a big inspiration to me in politics and could have likely been the 49th president after Vance, rest in peace. Yeah, he had a future ahead of him. I don't know if he was ever going to run for president, but he had a future ahead of him. He was very impactful. He didn't need to be president to be as impactful as he was. He could have taken his ball and gone home, and he would have been just as influential and left his mark on politics. He had it all, and he took a bullet for his country instead. And unlike the one that Trump took in Butler, this one took his life. And that's just absolutely horrific. You know, the first thing happened in Butler was a little shook, and then you find out that Trump survived and everyone knew he would be okay. But when it came down to something like this is just an utter tragedy when it happened. And definitely hearing like that, oh, he was in the hospital, and then it's like, could a miracle happen? And then it just doesn't happen. It's just horrific, absolutely horrific. September 10, 2025. And the left's reaction really made it worse. And again, the turning down the temperature stuff, they want you to do it, but they won't. That's the most disgusting thing, the more I think about it, that I could ever fathom as a reaction to this. Because no, you're the problem. You just did this. You did this. And you blame the right for it because you're unhinged and deranged and so detached from reality. This is what happens when you believe men can become women and vice versa. I mean, it's seriously, they are detached from reality. If they lived in reality and viewed things objectively, their ideology would not exist. We could maybe have like economic disagreements here and there, or even, moderate disagreements when it comes to social issues and things of that nature, but it would not be like this. The political climate would not be like this. There's certain things that it's just absolutely a disgrace the way these people behave. And it's downstream from their entire worldview. It really is, and it's gotten worse. I will say this. It's getting worse because you could tell nobody celebrated Butler. Because, maybe a few accounts did, and they were called out and, ratioed to the FBI, whatever. Because you could always find a tweet for everything. I'm sure you can. You probably could find a tweet for any single instance of somebody celebrating something horrible. And those are horrible people that are demonic in some form. And hopefully they get the help they need eventually. Because there's a lot of people like that, and we have a lot of them in our society, and there does need to be help to an extent. But the only way some people are going to help is seeing that there are consequences. They'll have to get fired. They'll have to lose their businesses and things of that nature before they snap out of whatever they're in. And that's not, it's the good kind of cancel culture, not we're going to ruin your life over a 10-year-old joke on social media. But let's see. XJ Cherokee Bear says, without him, Gen Z would be stuck with Harry Sisson +3. Yeah. BB says, treat the Dems the same way they treated us after Charlottesville. Funny to watch the left try to wiggle their way out of this one, deflect and deny. Well, exactly. And the difference, Charlottesville was like two R words, fighting basically. Obviously, the perpetrator of the attack was a right-winger. That you had a lot of instigation from both sides, and Trump was right when he said good and bad on both. You have people there to protest a statue. You have people there saying all these, incendiary comments and committing violence, and then you have people on the other side doing the same thing. So, again, that was like their battle cry for years that they had, and they could use that to demonize the right and lie about Donald Trump and say that you're like some sort of like Nazi because you'll take the words out of context. And that's the type of rhetoric that leads to things like that. It is. Especially when you have so many people that are mentally ill, unhinged, and militant. Real Text in Politics is don't let Dean Withers or Harry Sisson become the voices of Gen Z. Keep Charlie's legacy alive and forever. Elect Vance in 28 for Charlie. Exactly. I'm sick of people saying, because it's not many people, but you have people that are saying that anyone talking about elections right now or saying that, this is to mobilize people to the polls is a bad thing. Do you know what Charlie Kirk was about? Or are you pretending? And it's oh, wait, a lot of these people were trashing him for the most inconsequential issues a week ago and 2 weeks ago and saying horrible things about him for years. So I don't want to hear it from these people that want to demoralize people even further. That is not the answer. That is not what Charlie Kirk would want you to do. And it's clear that some people are just using this, pretending they were always, they're saying all these heartfelt things, pretending they were always his best friend, basically, so they can go out there and manipulate people and take the mantle. And I know damn well we're never going to let those type of people ever have it. I will say that because I will attest to that. That is not going to happen. But people that are using this to attack me for wanting to care, like, who the hell do these people think they are? I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much. But Laza92 says, when you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. Thank you for the super chat and the quote. American Nerd 1776 says, did you see the video released by Charlie's wife? I did see the address. I thought it was a great address. The left had a lot of disturbing reactions to that too. You could tell. You could just tell how certain things happen, or certain great moments happen, and the way that people react to them that are negative, it's like a demonic reaction. You could just tell. And a lot of the ways the left handled that was just as disgusting as they handled the initial event that took place and the assassination. So Rock Dog says, do you think the assassination will swing the midterms farther? I don't know how it impacts the political scene. I can't imagine that. I don't really want to get into all of that right away, but I do think that it will mobilize more conservatives to get it. Hopefully will mobilize more conservatives to get involved in politics, and people that supported Charlie. It's like I said, it is a personal insult to his legacy if you sit this one out. Now, if you think that it's more important to grandstand about unrealistic things, or whine about issues that don't matter, or decide to do things and support things that are just ridiculous, and that's one thing. But we don't need those people to win. They tried to sabotage Donald Trump, and we're not going to let them Charlie Kirk, he won at the end of the day. So, and then he sadly had his life taken from him. But the last year on Earth, he got to witness Donald Trump's victory, and he played a major role on college campuses across the country, working to sway people over to Donald Trump and just the right as a whole. And he did a great job. So Stephen Kanizik for 20 says, what I find to be so wild about the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk incident is that in response to Fuentes rearing his head, Milo has announced he is unretiring. The left is going to realize their celebrations were premature. Well, I don't know. Look, Milo, I've met the guy. He's been nice to me. I know he's controversial, but I don't know what that's going to entail. So I know he went on to campuses, though. That is true. I did forget about that. He's a very controversial guy. He says a lot. Says a lot of things to piss people off intentionally, and people rioted at his events, and that's more left-wing violence. They rioted at his events in 2017. I don't know if he's as big of a name or whatever now, but I don't know how that's going to impact things. I don't think that there's a replacement to Charlie Kirk. I don't think that there is. I don't think there will be. I think that there are people that are strong leaders that can rise up and do their own thing and contribute to the cause that Charlie championed, and that a lot of us champion and have championed for years. And I think that he would like to see that first and foremost. I don't think there's going to be a direct replacement for sure. I don't know why people are even thinking about that right now. Not saying that that's what your tweet was getting at, or your super chat was getting at, but Cameron Campbell for $20 says, I was 15 feet away from him, heard the bullet, saw him fell, ducked and ran. I'm still shaken, but a fire has been lit inside me to speak up. Vote, keep debating, keep changing minds. Do it for Charlie, Erica, and me. Yeah, it's definitely just being there must have been even more horrifying, because you see it, you hear about it, but if you actually, and it happens so fast, it's you're still in shock. It's horrifying to think about even. But if you're there, right in front of Charlie Kirk when it happened, I could only imagine how the rush of emotions that were involved in that. Because not only that, I mean, there's somebody at an event that's shooting at people with a gun. You're possibly, you're a target as well. It's just horrible. American Nerd 1776 says, fun fact, Utah is one of the 3 states that offers firing squad as an option for capital punishment. Is that something, like, people might look at that, because I want this to be an embarrassing punishment. We have the 8th Amendment. They say no cruel and unusual punishments, but they have to fit the crime. I don't know if there's a punishment that doesn't fit this crime. Ben Franklin was never president, but he was very influential as a founder of this country. And this is it's like a Ben Franklin of a generation in a way, because of that, based on where his standing was in the political arena. If somebody came for Ben Franklin, do you think that the 8th Amendment would mean that they couldn't, like, drown somebody in like a shark pit, basically, or something? Find a way to have a punishment that is embarrassing, because you're not going to be able to deter this stuff by making them like a hero. And, like, if you have like a firing squad, some people might, like, think that they're going out in a blaze of glory, and we don't want people to think that, or more of this stuff is going to happen. So the punishment needs to be embarrassing. It has to be something that even when it comes down to the attention whore social media culture that we have, that it's not going to be something that people are going to want to carry an attack where things like this happen. Because there's no punishment that's too cruel and unusual for this guy that did this horrible act. There's not. Absolutely not. Temporal Forces for 10 says, good evening, Rep. My heart has been aching since Wednesday. I need to ask, what do you think will be the end result of Charlie's sacrifice? What do you think President Trump can do in response? Well, we've kind of covered that already. We've talked about the investigations that have been unleashed, the people that have been fired from the bureaucracy that have been acting like this, and people have been doing it. It's like phone banking. People have been phone banking to get people out of their jobs and ruining their reputations. And I say good, because if you're ruining Charlie Kirk's reputation and dancing on his grave, then you don't deserve to have a positive reputation, because you're not a humane human being at that point. You've broken the social contract, ripped it in half, and lit it on fire at the same time. So enough is enough. This has to stop. And honestly, a lot of that is preventative, because it's going to get even more out of hand. It will get more out of hand if the culture surrounding this stuff does not change. You saw it with Luigi Mangione. You saw it with, to a lesser extent, with the Carmelo Anthony guy that stabbed the white guy to death at the track meet. And if you look at far left violence in general, it's ramping up. I've done research on this, and you had a lot more riots back in like 2020, but what you've seen now is you have seen less riots, but you've seen more attacks on people's lives. Just since 2021, you had the Waukesha massacre, which these studies that claim it's far-right violence is the only violence ignore it, despite the fact that this guy is on social media posting all this anti-white violent jargon. But if you have like anyone who is vaguely far-right that just commits any sort of atrocity, they'll say you're far-right, even if they don't really know. Like the people that run these organizations like the ADL and SPLC and all these, they need to be looked into as well, because they contribute to the political climate when they lie like this and they dehumanize. Obviously, there are extremists on the far right. That's not the point. The point is that these people pretend as if that's the only violence, and they put these fake studies out there that show it is, when almost every instance of violence that we've seen over the past couple of years has come out of the left. Some are ambiguous, like the Minnesota lawmaker shooting. That is true. But it's like even the guy who firebombed the house of the Democrat governor was sympathizing with Hamas. Whether he voted for Trump or not is irrelevant. He seems to be a more left-wing type of lunatic from what we've seen. All the evidence is pointed towards that. I don't know how he ended up voting. Probably voted for like Jill Stein. But it doesn't matter. The motive matters. Plenty of these far-right people hate Donald Trump that do these things, that they still get labeled far-right. But, you have Waukesha. Lee Zeldin was almost killed in 2022. That gets memory hold, but it happened on the campaign trail. There was an assassination plot in a Democrat mayoral candidate from a far leftist who thought he wasn't left enough. The Tennessee Christian school shooting in 2023, Evergreen, Colorado, another transgender-inspired attack. The attacker there was transgender or non-binary. Butler, they blame that on Republicans for some reason. A second assassination on Trump. We don't know a full motive, but if you don't know a full motive and the targeted person was a Democrat, they will still say it's right-wing violence. So it doesn't matter. You had a femcell shooter in Madison, Wisconsin at a Christian school in 2024 committed by a 15-year-old student. The United Healthcare CEO murder, the Tesla bombings, the murder at the Israeli embassy, the attempt on Josh Shapiro's life that came from the left on a certain specific issue, the LA ICE riots that we saw, attacks on ICE officers shot at ICE facilities trying to enforce the law. Minnesota lawmaker shooting, we said, is disputed. The perpetrator allegedly, according to his roommate, may have voted for Trump but was not political. But again, he worked for several Democrat governors. He claims he was contracted to do it by Tim Walz. I think he's more schizophrenic than ideologically motivated. And that was, the left is trying to use that to say that both sides are equal. It's like, no, not really. This is done by a schizophrenic more so than like somebody who, if anything, it's against his old employer. He shot a bipartisan centrist to death at her home. Was horrible, but again, not really the stereotypical right-wing shooting. If anything, you could make a case that it was done because he's just a schizophrenic guy. He had left-wing positions too. You could maybe put that in the center column or the schizo theory, horseshoe, whatever column. Then the Minneapolis transgender shooting, the stabbing that took place in North Carolina, where the perpetrator was explicitly saying anti-white sentiments after he did it. We've seen various attacks on Republican field offices. We saw, actually today, an attempted firebombing by people that had very violent anti-Trump yard signs at a Utah news station van. They failed, thankfully. And the Charlie Kirk assassination. This is, a lot of these are more recent. This is like, you've had the riots and things like that, but these are recent events, mostly, which is the scariest part of it all. So, American Nerd 76 says, I saw a video earlier today that suggested that Charlie's death might be the beginning of another. It's okay. It's not going to come. I don't think it will come to that. But the left and the way they've reacted is scary. And if things don't change culturally, they're going to be more emboldened in the future. And it's not going to be just this. This is going to be a routine thing. And it can't become a routine thing on any side. Thomas Willingham says, even though I voted for Trump 3 times, I was done voting, but now I'm back. Can't let them win anything. Yeah, this is the thing. You can't forget about it too. This is what these people think of you. This is how these people operate. It's not what some lunatic did. It's the culture they perpetuate that enables lunatics. They breed these people basically, and then some people that are the craziest of the crazy do stuff like this, and that's a problem. And they should not be allowed to hold power. I hope they go nuclear in redistricting in Florida. I hope they make it impossible for the Democrats to win the House. I really do, because the power, what they support, these are not people that are a reasonable opposition or anything like that. They dehumanize the other side. They care more about scoring political points than the sanctity of human life. And that's a problem. It truly is. Maryland guy says, I'm tired of hearing about January 6th as an excuse for the left every time one of their own. Yeah, and the only murder that took place came from a police officer against a protester. And that was a mostly peaceful protest, inside and outside of the building. with some people that took things too far and were overly punished for that, and then most of them got pardoned. Haas says, as Senator Cruz said, Charlie is likely a saint for what he did for the faith, which is why his loss was so painful. The Holy Spirit wept. Yeah, well, he's with our Creator now. I could say that. He was always very much about, and he was good at it too. The way he would talk to people that were not a part of the faith or Christianity, and he was always very respectful, knowledgeable. I've learned arguments from him that I've never even heard before, but it's in terms of the biblical accuracy and things of that nature. Like, he was really a hero in that regard. So yeah, absolutely. He did a lot. American Nerd 1776 is rep. If you were at the White House and Trump came up to you and asked, what should I do to bring justice to Charlie, what would you tell him? Honestly, 3 words: enforce the laws. We have laws on the books for all this stuff. You have to be able to use them. The left will use them. The right should use them. The left, these people are in a way a paper tiger, because they're fighting you. You're not beating them back up. But if you just pinch them once, you see how they react. And they don't have the institutional power and pull over the discourse that they had back in the day anyways, to the point where it's like, absolutely, you don't have to go to their level, but in terms of things like this, but you have to use your brain and use your legal avenues and tools that we have in front of us. And if we do that, then we will be able to absolutely go out there and make sure that we can rectify the issues. And honestly, when it comes to, it's a two-pronged thing. Some of it is the mental health problem. The same problem with mass shootings in the country is the same problem that that kind of stems from stuff like this. But also you have the left's cultural issue. Both of them are important. You have to solve the problem of mass shootings too, because they're happening at an unprecedented rate, and they shouldn't be allowed to happen. And it's not the guns. That is the laziest excuse in the world. It's not the guns. And things like this, it definitely, even like, it's to the point where even like a good guy with a gun couldn't have even stopped him, because he was 200 yards away and he had a scope that he put on a long gun that is like one of the most basic rifles. If you ban that, there is no Second Amendment. Even places, you can get that rifle in the United Kingdom and Australia and Canada and all these other places. It's not the gun, but it is the person that's pulling that trigger. We didn't have mass shootings in the 1950s or school shootings. You had guns in classrooms for archery class that were carried in by students at those schools, and you didn't have school shootings in the 1950s. But now you have it's a culturally sickness problem that the United States has. And it is getting worse, and it needs to be answered. And the gun thing is a whole nother distraction. You're not getting these guns out of the circulation. You want a waiting period for the first gun? You want to make our background checks streamlined and make them more effective? It might mitigate something, but I don't know if it's even going to solve the problem if somebody wants to commit an act of terror like this. I don't believe that is going to fully solve the problem. Plenty of illegal guns do a lot of damage in places like Chicago, where you have a lot of gun crime. I don't think it's the answer. But again, yeah, enforce the laws in the books, make sure mentally ill people don't have access. And I will say this, when it comes down to things like these FBI watch lists, there have been so many times where the shooters are on their watch list and they do nothing. And everybody celebrating this should go on a watch list. Because if you think that this is good, what's going to stop you from doing something like that? If you have these horrific opinions, there does need to be some sort of consequence. Absolutely. It's law and it's order. Stephen Knizik for 10 says, I'll admit this here. I do feel ashamed that I laughed at that Charlie meme where his face gets smaller with his head. He was the nice one, but I could never have imagined September 10th. I mean, everybody has laughed at memes. Look, you had people blaming the South Park episode for this, and I think that was dumb. And I have many grievances with South Park and their bizarre leftward turn. This whole both side, they don't make fun of both sides anymore. It's always one side, and we know which side that is. But Charlie liked the episode, and I didn't think they needed to pull that down. I don't think that they had any role with radicalizing this nut job for lightly poking fun at these events. So I think it'd be inappropriate now, obviously, to make light, but I don't think you should feel bad about the past. Everyone's disagreed with every political commentator. I've disagreed with Charlie in the past, but he's come a long way, and he hasn't missed in a very long time, and sadly, he just will never miss again. But we will miss him. American Nerd 1776 says, if Pam Bondi and the FBI screw this up like they did with the Epstein crap, then Trump needs to fire them immediately. I agree. I mean, this is high stakes stuff. They have to act. Say it louder for the people in back, please, for 10. Benson X for 5 says, what really made me angry was MSNBC suggested it could have been a supporter firing. Yeah. No, that's their knee-jerk reaction. That's not, even if that happened, it's not a point-blank shot to the neck. Like, that's ridiculous. And thankfully, they found the guy, because if they didn't find him, if his family didn't turn him in, I don't know if I really don't know if he would have been found. I really don't know. Because the fact that we had all the information we really had and couldn't find him within like 48, 72 hours is just insane. This is supposed to be a first world country. I guess not anymore. I mean, this type of stuff happens in third world countries. J.R. Williams for 10 says, don't trust the FBI's narrative. How did the weapon end up in the woods if Robinson leapt from the roof, legs bent the camera, then zoomed out? He was hobbled from the fall, no gun in his pants, more questions. I mean, look, he did it. Clearly. I don't know what you're really trying to get at. I don't know how he was allowed to be able to get to the woods from where he was. Temporal Forces says, I take solace knowing Charlie does indeed wear the crown of a martyr and is with Jesus. Charlie may not be with us, but he doesn't feel far away. Yeah, I mean, it's like, honestly, I always, for, a while, better part of the past decade, have been a fan of Charlie Kirk, and I've met a lot of people through Charlie Kirk indirectly, even though I never met him personally, but I never, I would say that I never realized how important he was until something like this happened. I will say that. It's horrific. Let's see, I think I scrolled up too far. Eric Saul says Hassan needs to be arrested. Well, he stokes violence. Was it him directly? I don't know, that caused this person to feel emboldened. But the fact that people can say that, I mean, even, look, as much as I don't like I hate Dan Crenshaw. I'm not a fan of him. But, like, what Hassan Piker has said about Dan Crenshaw is just this violent, disgusting rhetoric that nobody should really say about anybody. It's just gross. Hassan is gross. A lot of these leftist streamers are gross. There's no need to legitimize them. We have what Destiny said about the Butler thing, and then this. Dustin Carner for 5 says, this incident pushed me firmly in the paleoconservative Christian right camp. I respected Charlie for his King Solomon-like approach, a man of God. He was. Christopher Laurie for 10 says, this should motivate us. We cannot allow the libs to take power ever again. If they do, they will become emboldened. More potential events like this. It's true. American Nerd 1776 saw something a couple days ago that Clemson has no plans to fire anyone celebrating what happened. Cut their fun, and that's why they lost to that very not so good football team yesterday. Karma. BB says, never been more convinced this is good versus evil. It is. That's exactly what this is. It's what it's become. Right versus left has really become good versus evil. Didn't think it would come to this, but that's what it's come down to. American Nerd 1776 says, I thought the guy that shot Reagan was a crazy person who did what he did to impress the actress from... No, he was. I mean, he was crazy, but I'm saying that the left nowadays, if that happened, because, I mean, it's clear the guy was more so on the left at that point, but the left would have said he was far right because he, like, was with those groups in the 1970s or something, which is ridiculous. The way they blame the victim is insane. I mean, it's verifiable evidence. They're just blatantly lying, and they believe it. That's the worst part of all. They believe it. First of all, it was like not a big deal to them, or they were celebrating, and then it was like, oh, no, you guys did it. It's exhausting. Say it louder for the people in the back, please, for 5, says JFK, MLK, RFK, CJK assassinated all the last names that end in K. Well, I mean, that's just a coincidence. I mean, not everybody that gets... Like, Charlie Kirk was not known for his initials. But LinRx52 for 5 says, you're right, the feeling is not different than 9/11, a moment where you realize we're at war and the world just shifted. Yeah. I mean, that's the way it is. I tell people to remain peaceful, but there's multiple. I mean, there were no firings directly at Russia in the Cold War, but it was a ideological war. It was. I mean, this is a spiritual and psychological war that they've deployed at us time and time again, and we need to actually combat it effectively for once, peacefully, of course. I mean, Charlie would not want it any other way. He was all about ideas and peaceful debate. Not saying it has to be debate, but, you know, peaceful action of sorts. Joshua V for 50 says, I always appreciate your content. It was a tough week for sure. Absolutely. A lot of stupid takes from a lot of people, and just dangerous takes from a lot of people. I don't know if okay, there we go. I lost my audio for a second on my end. Cameron Campbell says, for those scared, just remember none of the original 12 apostles had a happy ending. They died for the truth. Yeah, I found that out from Charlie Kirk directly, actually, which is the crazy part. But that, I think, is another compelling point for why the Bible is accurate. How many people had many opportunities to distance themselves after the fact from Christ and from the resurrection, and chose to historically verified die in a certain way. Maybe one of them was able to escape. There's rumor about that, but it was all very similar, as well as in different parts of the country, or not the country, but the world as well, where they went to spread the gospel. J.R. Williams for 2 says, thoughts on why Antifa is not a terror organization yet. Well, it's kind of, I mean, I'm not trying to make an excuse for that, but it is very interesting on how you would designate that, because it is true. They will say, and Antifa will say this, oh, we're not actually an organization. We're just anti-fascist. And you have like these chapters. I would go chapter by chapter and find these people and put them on a watch list, because it is true that they are not very organized. And then crack down on their Discords and their social medias where this stuff happens. You know, they've deleted Discord servers and investigated them because there were people in them who were even just remotely present at January 6th. Not inside the building, just there as part of the peaceful protest, not doing anything wrong, not doing anything illegally. I know people personally that have had visits from the FBI that were within like a mile radius. Like this is what the left, these are the levels the left went to over something that resulted in 0 deaths of their own that were not caused by any perpetrators on the right. It's like, I don't know. But Steve Dow for 10 says Democrat approval ratings continue to decline. Their voter registration continues to decline. The culture is shifting rightward. This would merely serve to accelerate the process. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the thing about the electoral politics is I don't know how it's going to impact anything electorally. But I did see the numbers in North Carolina, and they looked really good since the 10th. And if people are waking up, I see that as a silver lining, a net positive. Not like past this point, not a net positive overall, of course. I have to make that clear. But Ken Patchy for 5 says, where should I go to report people? Well, there's people there's like accounts that are like expose Charlie's murderers, because they all have contributed to this climate. I mean, they all have. I'm not saying that they all need to serve a full sentence and be thrown in prison, but there does need to be some form of accountability. Because it is true, a lot of these people are still people, and they've just been indoctrinated into demonic sickness, and there does need to be an outlet for ways that they can indeed recover themselves if they're doing stuff like that. But the people that take this violent action need to be punished to the full extent of the law and make it humiliating. Make sure that something like this will never happen to anybody. Make sure it's effective deterrence. I don't think there's anything the Eighth Amendment doesn't really cover for something like this. A public assassination that is cheered by a lot of people. That's the scariest part, one could argue. But LinnerX52 says, on rhinos trying to steal the moment, I feel that way above Governor Cox. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like he's been a rhino for a while. People have praised his leadership early on, and now he's kind of doing like the both sides type of thing. As Rob M. Roberts for 5 says, he said Charlie said inflammatory things, which it could be interpreted in multiple ways, but I think we understand that he's getting at the fact that Charlie, like, is a provocateur, which, I mean, he, to an extent you could say that he was, but people that change history provoke in some way, not stuff like this. This is not on Charlie. I feel like when you say things like Charlie says, or Charlie's a provocateur, or whatever, it kind of has the connotation that there's some sort of, like, incitement from him, which I think is gross victim blaming, and we're not going to go down that road. J.R. Williams says, can you play the bagpipe tribute? I don't have it offhand, but I'm sure you can go find it if you'd like. But I did see the video of him from 2024 on election night, the moment Trump won, and it's like all of his hard work that he put in was realized. And it really was, you know, he didn't just do the college campus stuff. He was doing the entire ground game across the swing states in Pennsylvania and getting people involved and a lot of stuff that we've talked about in the channel over the years, things that we as a community didn't necessarily come up with, but you know, things that we've promoted were used. I'm not saying that we made that happen, but I think it's a good thing, and what we fought for eventually was realized. And we have very smart people like Charlie Kirk, and the people that worked around him were able to do that. They outsourced the ground game from the Trump campaign in many places to these people. And Arizona, that's one of the reasons why Arizona is probably not going to go back to the Democrats anytime soon. And that's where Charlie's place of residence is. But Nathan Hale for 5 says Charlie was not killed due to a lack of gun control. I'm tired of the left not trying to. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. They'll take a clip out of context where they'll say Charlie said that guns are worth the deaths they cause, and if you play the full clip, and this is what they do. You know, is it really is somebody say inflammatory things, or do you cut them and make them and sensationalize them to be some inflammatory thing? That's the problem. They do it with Trump, they do it with him, they do it with anybody on the right. We don't really have people doing that to people on the left nearly as much, because we could just play it in the full context. And it's still, especially when Biden was president, we kind of had like a gold mine of content to promote, but that's not the point. I mean, the point is that you have people that are just doing this stuff, and what he really said was, you know, you can't, if you ban cars, I mean, how many car accident deaths are there per year? If you ban cars, these car accident deaths would decline. But there is some trade-off and drawback, and we have a right to protection. Guns can be used as a vehicle for harm. They could also be used as a vehicle for hunting, for protection, for numerous reasons. And it's not the gun, because we've had guns forever. This is a common recurring theme that we see in modern culture. The internet has made it worse. It absolutely has. The internet is a big driver of this. It's put people, the information age has helped in some ways in terms of realizing certain problems, and then it's also hurt because you have people that spend way too much time online, get into these weird communities with these strange people, and then they don't have any social skills. They are into these weird fetishes, like this one person was, and it kind of warps your brain. And many of them are on pharmaceuticals. They'll go on telehealth and they'll get some anxiety medication in 5 minutes, and it messes them up that they're not supposed to have, and they're handed out like free candy. And they don't get handed out like that in a lot of these other Western countries. Like I said, pharmaceuticals are probably the biggest one-to-one for this type of stuff, more so than guns even. And like I said, the gun in this case was not, you could not ban a gun like this without banning every gun. And if you ban every gun, you're not going to be able to realistically take 500 million guns out of the circulation. If you wanted to do this, he was going to do this. The problem is the person behind it. And we need to make sure that the most vulnerable people to this stuff in society don't end up doing this kind of stuff. And when you have people celebrating people like Luigi Mangione and events like this, do you think that creates more assassination attempts or less? I think it's obvious it does more. So there needs to be more pushback on stuff like that moving forward. But we'll see if I don't know if the left is not willing to do that to their own side and their own rhetoric, and that's why left-wing violence is on the rise. They can point fingers and do whataboutisms all day. I honestly don't care. It's not the point. This is not always about you. Michael Lau for two says, when are these groups going to be designated? Well, they should be. I mean, all of these groups on Reddit needs investigations. What they've done to places like Gab, which there are a lot of fringe actors there, Parler, which much less so, maybe some QAnon types, but they have gone after those people relentlessly and have essentially monitored the platforms 24/7 and tried to basically take these things off the App Store or whatever. But when it comes down to Reddit, all of Reddit is left-wing Gab. I mean, Blue Sky is the amount of unhinged behavior there. What makes what these same people are saying on X look sane. I mean, there's a lot of people that need to be put on a watch list. You are right. BB says, liberals on a podcast scared of Elon and other people angrily outing leftists. I will show more sympathy than you showed for us the past 10 years. John Waffle for 20. Appreciate it. Says, I went to a Charlie Kirk event once and he was very respectful to the liberal debaters. Can't believe he's gone. RIP, I hope our justice system doesn't screw up like it usually does. Well, they got the guy, and I think they will give him a punishment. But as for Charlie, yeah, I mean, I saw Charlie the first time probably 2019. He came to university campus, and it was an event with a relatively unknown people that are more well known at the time were with him. I think Candace Owens was supposed to be there and she wasn't. But it was he dealt with a lot of people. He really I wasn't as developed politically back then, but a lot of the things that he would say, he does open people's minds. On a topic he went a heated but respectful exchange with a student, and I think it was climate change. They went back and forth, but he always tries to the way he would persuade people and try to get into their mind and try to he was very talented at what he did. Whether people think he was the most charismatic guy in the world or not, he really was when it comes down to the impact that he left behind. I don't think you could deny that. And there is a good chance that he would have ran for president one day, and there is a good chance that he would have been president one day. John V. says, will the killer's father get the reward money? I have no idea. Somebody in chat said they should donate it to TPUSA. I think that would be a good use. Wyatt says they did this to the moderate and celebrated. What do you think they would do to the rest of us? How are we supposed to live in a society? Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like Charlie, like people say he's like a moderate. He was a standard. He always was the barometer. Like that's the thing. Like he was never, he would sometimes push the envelope, but it's when the envelope was pushing. Like when Tucker Carlson in 2019, he was like the more paleocon type of voice. Charlie Kirk, and him had some disagreements. I probably came around more to Tucker's side on like immigration when Charlie was not like fully there yet. And then I think over COVID, he just got like, from what I've heard from people behind the scenes, because you have a lot of people trying to take credit, he kind of got red-pilled over COVID and started to get really good on the issues. And people didn't believe him at first because it's like interesting. He like flip-flopped or whatever, but I think he just is genuine. He got red-pilled later on certain things, and that's perfectly fine because, he was able to have a big impact. And when it comes down to all the issues, he hasn't had I don't think I've seen a bad take from Charlie Kirk in over half a decade. Like he was always like just right where he needed to be. Maybe if there could have been a minor disagreement here and there when it comes down to something, but he was always right where the right was and where the right needed to be. Maybe, he caught up to speed on some things like a few months later than like I did or whatever. But he really came a long way and changed a lot of minds for the better. But he was not extreme. The main point is I'm trying to make. All the takes that he had were not extreme, nor was the way that he conducted himself extreme. And all the quotes they want to take out of context are not really extreme. Like when it comes to like affirmative action or something, they'll smear him with quotes about that, which it's ridiculous. But let's see. Wyatt says, I want to make sure I didn't miss any. I don't think I missed any super chat. Okay. Wyatt says, oh, he did that one. Real Texan says, who on our side do you think could debate? I don't know. Like there are people that can, I will say that, but it's not about who's going to replace. There's no replacement. There will be people that will step up and make an impact, and I think Charlie wouldn't want it any other way. But there's no one-to-one. There's no one-to-one replacement. And there will be people that do great things. I hope to do great things, but it's not a matter of being able to. It's about doing what you can to benefit the nation, save this country, the country we all grew up in, we all know and love. That's what it's about, and that's what Charlie wanted. And I don't think it's about anything to do with replacing Charlie. There will always be prominent people in politics that make an impact. There will be people that, I don't know, there will be people that make a big impact and reach generations, and that's just something that we'll eventually see and hopefully see, because what I don't want to happen is people get demoralized. Whoops. Okay, I audio lost for a second. But I don't want people to be demoralized and just like stand down completely. So Big Hoss 81 says a lot of normies waking up this week. True. American Nerd with 2 super chats, revoke MSNBC's license. I agree on principle, but honestly, nobody watches them anymore. Nobody watches mainstream media. They don't. They're becoming unhinged because they have to like compete with like Reddit when it comes down to getting younger people to pay attention. That's part of it. Also, should Thomas Massie be kicked out of the GOP for what he said about what? Yeah, I mean, he's basically going to be kicked out. I don't know how you kick somebody out. Censured, maybe. It's symbolic, but the guy's a clown. He again, people have looked at this guy as somebody where if they defend him, they'll claim he's like more based than Trump. And then he's like, Trump's rhetoric is a problem. He criticizes Trump more that he praised Charlie Kirk or criticizes the perpetrator or the left. He is not somebody who is helpful. I don't know why people think he is. There's nothing about him that is helpful at this point. All he does is vote with the left and obstruct, whether it's principled or not. Whether if he was like a dictator, he would do certain things or not that you might like. Because he's not going to do it. He doesn't understand politics. There's a reason why you look at the left's favorite Republicans. There's a reason why they're all the people that do this stuff and just grandstand against Trump. Real Texan says lots of fake AI slop and boomer bait about Kirk all over Facebook. When will Zuck crack down? I have less faith in Zuck than Elon for obvious reasons, even though those platforms have gotten better. I don't use Facebook. I have a Facebook page. If people DM, I know I get DMs there sometimes. I barely, if ever, check it. You want to find me, go to X, go to Instagram, follow me there. But Facebook's kind of a dead zone. Ken Patchy for two says, did you see the TMZ video it's just all these people are just gross, and this is what we're up against. This is what they think of you. It's not even just about Charlie Kirk. It's what they think of everybody normal, everything normal. They're miserable people. They really are. Ian Wagner says, I know how Charlie's kids feel. I lost my grandpa in 2004 to real cancer. I was 5 years old. That's tough. Sorry for your loss. I know it was a while ago, but that's tough. American Nerd 76. I heard Charlie got Vance from being anti-Trump to being MAGA. If true, then we will have Charlie to thank for the VP and soon to be President Vance. Was that the case or not? Because I think that no, I think Charlie was. I thought he met Charlie after he was supporting Trump, because he supported Trump in 2018. And I don't think he met. I don't think that he met Vance until 21. But Vance was already on board in 21. For sure. And he's got to get stronger security. I mean, he's got Secret Service, but all these people need stronger security. Everybody needs to stay safe and take care of themselves and don't get hurt and don't hurt other people. Unless it's legal self-defense, of course. But that's the way it is. I'm not really happy about the state of affairs. It's definitely it's a scary moment for sure. It's not something that we would like to be talking about right now. So we'll probably wrap things up. We'll do a last call for super chats. We had a decent amount of people in chat. I didn't want to do a stream the day of. It is a big event that took place, but I did want to do a stream and cover it. We can't let them stop the channel. They want to stop discourse. They want to stop voices that they disagree with. And we're not going to do that. Obviously, out of respect, we've removed mid-roll ads from the last few videos in this stream as well, because it's definitely not the right occasion for that. I have not read the ad reads. This week I will, because I have to do double. I can't be too far behind. But I didn't want to do them too quickly, because if I'm doing it's just, that would not feel right, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, we all have to be and pray. That's another thing. Pray, get closer to God. That's the number one thing that Charlie said he wanted to be remembered by was his faith and helping other people get to that level. Michigan Nationalists for two says, on a brighter note, Jared Goff had 5 touch. I saw. It's hard to enjoy when all of your teams win. College, NFL, MLB, when this stuff happens. This is far more important. Far more important. Thankfully, on the brightest note, the Ducks won yesterday, and that was Charlie Kirk's team, and the coach gave him a tribute at the press conference, so that was good. And the Yankees did a tribute. That was a really good tribute. The Cubs did a tribute. So many teams did a tribute, which was good. I mean, if they're doing tributes for Floyd, and they don't even know all the facts, and you see a 6-minute video, they crop it, and that's just another thing. We know, like, we have all the facts, and they're denying it from this, but then they were ready to just jump on and blame the police and say it's a racial thing and riot and use it as an excuse. We don't see anyone doing that on our side, and I'm glad we don't. The closest thing we had to unrest was probably 1-6, and 99% of people there did not engage in such unrest because you had hundreds of thousands of people in attendance. So we got to, make sure we're careful. Don't go out there and do anything stupid, but don't stop engaging in the political arena, because that is the number one thing they want. And I know it's not safe, but you can't get beaten fully into submission. But be careful no matter what anybody does. That's what I'll say. But yeah, someone says I've never heard. I'm not like, it's not like it's just a more somber tone. It's not about crying. It's not about, I don't want to be angry. There is anger. There is sadness. But it's not. We're not breaking down election results. We're not analyzing new things. We're not looking at the news and the Trump critics or anything like that. This is different. And I will say this. Moving forward, the channel will probably have more focus on cultural issues. That doesn't mean we're stopping electoral analysis and politics, but there will be more videos on non-electoral stuff specifically. I know that it's not going to probably perform as well, but some things do need to be said and need to be covered, and let the algorithm deal with it. But we're not going to stop with we may even tomorrow, depending on what happens, release a video on something, but it will be tied into this for sure, this whole thing. But some people, and I think they know who they are, have just decided to release video after video after video without such acknowledgement, and have just proceeded on as normal. It's like, you may disagree, but I don't know how you do that in this political climate. I don't know how you do that. I just don't. But BB says any medical professional or nurses, Celebrate should lose their license 100%, because these are people that are supposed to protect people no matter what. It doesn't matter. They take oaths for this type of stuff. It doesn't matter who it is. You have to save the person's life. And if you're going to celebrate death as a doctor, that's not, I'm not saying, like, if a person supports a death penalty, that's one thing, but this, that's like the response they'll have. And it's so disingenuous because they're so uncomparable. Your secret admirer for two says losing Charlie felt like losing a brother. Yeah, I mean, I never met the guy, but it still felt very personal. I don't know if it's because I am an influencer of sorts, not nearly a fraction on the same level, but or that I've been to events. I saw him speak in December. He was debating. Last time I saw him, he was having a conversation with Cenk Uygur, and they were going back and forth in a respectful way, and they were agreeing with each other, and Charlie was getting Cenk to agree with him. Like, that was the discourse. That is not the discourse at this stage in the game in most cases. I'll give Cenk credit where it's due, but even though he has contributed to the climate, I believe, but let's hope he doesn't do that moving forward, and let's hope he starts to call out his nephew, because his nephew is out of control, and we all know who his nephew is. But I'll look in regular chat as well. for a couple minutes. Safirian, thank you for the 2. Also, top fans this stream. Top 5, Fisherman's Corner, Cameron Campbell, Stephen Kanizik, Joshua V, and number 1 is American Nerd 1776 with 2,975 experience points. So thank you. LT concerned more with Dems winning. Yeah, and it's the thing is that I'm not concerned with the midterms right now. I feel like if I made a video about the midterms, I would, like, even a week from now or even this week, I'd get called out because it's like too soon, whatever. I feel like if the numbers come out in Pennsylvania tomorrow and they're huge for Republicans, I think that would be something that would be relative or related to this because of how much Charlie cared about this type of stuff and how much of an impact that he's had and he continues to have even in passing. But we'll see. Dean Cream between says RIP will only get stronger going forward. Exactly. Well, that we have to. Because I don't know how much weaker that we can get, and we're not going to have a nation at the rate things are going. So, as for the apparatus that he had with the turnout, because people are asking that, I feel like if anything, you could make the case that it could have gotten stronger, not weaker. And it deserves to get stronger. They don't deserve to win out of this. That's the last thing I want to happen. Because they don't deserve to win. They didn't deserve to win after what they were doing to Trump in 24, and they definitely don't deserve to win any election ever again after what they've done since. And it's not even just the Charlie thing. This is just symbolic of everything. I feel like it's just symbolic of everything. Now, someone mentioned the economy in chat. Now the job numbers they're gonna go down for good reason now because, well, people are getting fired for celebrating this stuff. So hopefully we get people that actually are decent people working in those positions, and hopefully the jobs numbers will get stronger from that. I say that's partially in jest, but I don't know. I have no idea. Young turnout without Charlie. Well, young turnout is young turnout. I think if people watch that there's not going to be low turnout. There shouldn't be low turnout, at least in like a presidential year. If you like Charlie and you saw this happen, that's what I tell people. Like the left votes like it's the last election every single time, but the right doesn't. And then I have to hear about how I'm shilling for the GOP. When, by their own logic, Charlie Kirk was the biggest quote-unquote shill for the GOP. And they want to pretend like that they were his biggest fan now, even though they did nothing but trash him for the past 5, 6, 7 years, especially when he didn't deserve it at all. Like, very inconsequential things. Michigan Nationalists is without Charlie, youth vote will shift hard. I don't know about that. I don't think so. We have to rise above it and win. That's all we have to do. So, yep, it's sad. There's sadness, there's anger, and that's how these things happen. Like people in chat have said, it's a similar feeling to when 9/11 happened. I was too young, but it's different it's just different. In some ways, it affects you more. In other ways, it's obviously much less of a feeling but the whole nation is under attack in a way. I don't expect the average Democrat to feel as personally affected as I do. I'm not asking them to pretend they were his best friend or that they really liked him. But to just run his name into the mud over lies, to celebrate, to slander, to play victim, to blame the right for this while telling the right they have to turn down the temperature, that is not something that is something that should be brushed away. At least 9/11 provided national unity of sorts. This has divided the country further, the way these people have behaved, and it's not a good thing. And maybe it's a good thing that they're showing their true colors, because so many people still don't know what we're up against. And they think that we can have 2008 politics as usual all the time. It's not how it works. John Waffle says, do you think this is the end of on-campus political shows? No, I don't think so. Ben Shapiro, whether you like him or not, he's announced his tour. He's planned on doing it for a while. They're going to continue probably the same tour without Charlie. With TPUSA, there will be speech. There will be debate. I think there needs to be a hell of a lot more security. But you can't let them beat and bully the right into full submission. That's exactly what they want. That's the last thing that can happen. We will not let them win. We won't. So we'll wrap things up. It's been a good stream, an important one. Make sure you guys like it before you go. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk, and pray for his family and pray for the entire country. Red Eagle, out.